realize some of you are imitating Beyonce. I can tell some of you are lip syncing. That's okay. What a week. It feels like a year has passed. I've been thinking about the last few weeks and how we've been sort of defining a little bit more about what this church is. We say we are genuinely inclusive and joyfully deep and spiritually rational. I think maybe genuinely inclusive was addressed a bit last week. Joyfully deep, perhaps 2 weeks back, maybe next week and the weeks ahead. But today, I thought I'd talk a little bit about reasonably or spiritually rational, or rationally spiritual. And that is that in our faith, we contain both of those areas, those thoughts, those perspectives. We have a long history of being a tradition of reason. That is, that one must reason their way into faith in our church. Going back to the ancients, they said that we didn't believe in infant baptism like the Catholics did because we believed one had to reason one's way into the tradition. That was first and foremost. But we also have this legacy of spirituality, which is, in my mind, more closely tied to what one would call mysticism or the mystical. I'm not talking about spiritualism, the bump under the table, the seances, although we do have a little history in that, I will not deny it. What I mean is, we have a tradition of seeking awe and wonder. That is as important in our faith as reason. Now, I was thinking about awe and wonder. I was thinking, I am in awe of many things in the world, both terrible and great. I am in awe of athletes who excel in their field, and I am in awe of athletes who cheat their way and destroy lives to the top. And I am in awe of people who respond to events in the world like the one that happened before Christmas in Connecticut and stand firm for the control of firearms. And I am in awe of those who stand against those controls, unable to converse. And I am in awe of those who can stand in front of millions of Americans and cast vision. Did you see the president, unburdened by history, create a vision, a progressive, unified, and diverse America? And I am in awe of poets who stand, as this inaugural poet did, speaking tenderly of the mother who gave birth to him and worked 20 years at a register so that he could write that poem. So awe and wonder come in many forms. But I asked myself while I was thinking about this, where in my life do I experience awe and wonder? And as often happens when a preacher asks a question like that to the universe responds. So this week I was sitting in our break room in the Holman building eating lunch, and I picked up a magazine. It was a science magazine, and I opened it. And here on the first page was the story of a Harvard astronomer who is reporting that he has seen 7 galaxies that are 13.1 billion years old. The Big Bang was 13.7. And so these are the oldest galaxies yet seen. He said seeing that was like the scientific study of Genesis. And then he described to me, not such a scientific person, how the universe came about, how the fog cleared, how the stars exploded, how iron and carbon were formed, He called it cosmic reionization. I am so proud that I remembered that word. You can look that up later. And then he said this amazing thing in this article. This is what he said. He said, carbon and iron, the stars blew up and died and shot these elements into space, there to be incorporated into planets and people. I was only on page 2 and I couldn't read any further. My mind was filled with the wonder of the immense time that he was speaking of, the incredible forces in the universe, the genesis of us all. But when I woke up from that amazement, I still asked, what is the genesis of our awe and wonder? To take it into the realm of this sermon, 2 weeks ago I spoke of how we are somewhere between too Christian and not Christian enough. I would say today's question is, where are we between too mystical and not mystical enough? We are a rational religion, but half of who we are is a mystical religion. And I was reading this week a sermon preached here in this sanctuary, or in this church, in the 50s, by Robert Rabel, in which he said this. Now hang in with me here. Every man who kisses his wife is a mystic, if he loves her, he said. Because the kiss is fraught with a meaning that cannot be explained by the biologist. Every wife is a mystic if she feels in that kiss the assurance of protection and the knowledge that behind it is strength for her to lean on when she is weary. If it promises support to her and companionship in the lonesome hours. Every mother, he said, is a mystic when she fills with awe and wonder at the sight of her newborn baby. At least for a little while, he said. Now, said in a kind of 50s way, he certainly couldn't imagine us, but he taps into something. When we feel assurance, the release of tensions, patriotism that is real, or the movement of music, or the feeling of the warmth of the earth, or witnessing a home run with the bases loaded. These durable satisfactions of life are not rational. They enter us in the mystic realm. The mystic awareness is the awareness of the beauty and the violence of the natural world, the tremendous feats of the body and mind, the understanding of the perceived encounter with the divine. Awe and wonder are expressed in our longings and in our uncertainty, in our fascination and in our terror. They point to the transcendent and to the limits of being human. As I was composing these thoughts, I thought about my longings and how they connect me to awe and wonder. I long to get through most days uninjured, fed, and happy, to be honest. But also to know bliss, to feel deeply my heritage and all that led to my life with gratitude, to live long and prosper, as they say, to see my children's children, to see the dream of peace come true, and to love you, the church, for a long time. And my uncertainty balances my longings. Knowing the fragility of the human body and our lives, knowing the ways that death and grief can overcome us, I am uncertain of the future, and on occasion terrified about what tomorrow holds. I am often uncertain that I have anything to offer you. and that sometimes little of any of this makes any difference. As we are people who seem to have lost the ability to be in awe and at times to be grateful. Longing and uncertainty. And there is sadness, I think, in many of us when we think of our relationship to wonder and awe. As we get older, there is less and less to surprise us. We have seen it all as our lives extend into the timeline. It is a curse of good education and a sharp, perceptive mind that by middle age you know a great deal, and by old age you have seen most of everything. Sure, there is more for us to know than we can ever take in, but the experience of surprise comes less and less, making, at least for me, my uncertainties more deep and my longings even deeper. Yet I know that surprise points to the things we long for and are uncertain about. One need only to spend some time with children to get a sense of that. Aaron was showing me a picture of his toddler, Henry. It was a couple weeks ago when we had a surprise snowfall, and he brought Henry out into the snow. It's not my story to tell, but you're going to have to sit there. You know. And the picture of Henry seeing the first snow come down. Wonder was there. And I remember the same when my daughter, who's now 12, was in my arms. And we lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and when she was fussy, I would bring her out onto the porch under the canopy of the maple tree. And the wind blowing through the leaves would change everything. That sense of wonder was in her. The awe, though, was for the parent who, seeing the child in wonder, knows something more, knows the mortality of each of us in that experience, knows that the snowflake and the wind and the leaves will always be there, but that we will not. The pure wonder meets the awe. So I've been trying to practice the reception of awe and wonder in my life. This past week, a flock of skinny robins flew into the churchyard. It was this week or last. I've never seen such a gathering. They sat outside my office busy, the mosaic of life seeking life, and I just stopped everything and observed that, trying to cultivate that sense of awe, that wonder at the moment. And at the same time, that same week, I forgot that calling. It happened in a simple kind of experience that every parent in here has had. I was walking down the hall in our house, and I pulled a jacket of my son's off a doorknob. I don't know about you, but in our house, doorknobs are often more used than hangers. And as I was going to hang the jacket in his room, I heard from behind me, "Dad, Dad." And I stopped, annoyed of being interrupted in my chore. And he said, "Dad, I have to tell you this. I took that jacket from down the hall and I threw it like that. And it landed perfectly on that doorknob." My next thought was, why are we throwing jackets down the hallway? Only to be interrupted by the sound of two hearts breaking. My son's head down, walking off, feeling as if he had not been seen or met in his wonder. And mine in missing the moment to join him in that. And then struck by the awe that if I continue in that way, a head full of bees, lists of things to do, in some ways I will miss his growing up. And I long to be more present and more amazed, even of the flight of jackets down the hall. The poet says awe comes in the moment of speaking in the shape of the tongue. The silence, the kiss, the shape of the lip, the curl of the dog in bed, the beak of the hummingbird. Not only wonder, but the painful realization that the Buddhists are right, that all of this is impermanent. So I ask you today, what are your moments of wonder? And what are your moments of awe? And what do they do to your spirit? Can you return to the roots that call you to the mystical life? How is your life to change if you aren't willing to see in the kiss, in the feeling of national pride, in the reminder of what is important, in the flight of a child's jacket, that the soul speaks and needs our attention today and tomorrow? There is no use of reason in the mystic realm. Only the feeling that life matters. And to be healthy and happy and mature adults, we must also be mystics, in the finest sense of that word. We must live by values that cannot be verified objectively, but subsist in the mystic strain of our faith. Robert Rabel said here in this church more than 50 years ago, every vibrant Unitarian is at least part a mystic, whether he consciously recognizes the fact or not. And one of my heroes, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, said, mankind will not perish for want of information, but only for want of appreciation. The beginning of our happiness lies in the understanding that life without wonder is not worth living, he said. May that be a calling to us, a guide for the days ahead. Amen.